Hello! Today I'm going to make a video that a few of you actually have asked about, since I have this counterbalance loom that I introduced in my looms video. So this is my 4-shaft Glimakåkra counterbalance loom. And these are super common, as I mentioned in that video, in Sweden and I think in Scandinavia in general. They're pretty cool in the sense that the technology is just the same as it has been for hundreds of years. But they can also be a little bit finicky to get like a nice shed on. And this is the questions that I got. Like, how do you actually adjust to get a good shed on your counterbalance loom? And I mean, I have not had this for a really long time. There are women here that have been weaving on counterbalance looms like this for 30, 40 years, even 50 years, and they're obviously pros at this, which I also notice sometimes when I say something about having issues, that it's hard to get a clean shed on a counterbalance looms, and they're like, nah, it's fine. But it can be if you're not used to it. So I'm going to share the tips and tricks that I have found since starting to weave on this. And this will also be the last video in a while where I do something with this loom, because I have a new loom and I do not have space in my current living quarters for 2 full-size looms. So I'm going to take this apart, but first I'm going to show you my best tips and tricks. So a couple of different things. Some things you can find in the weaving books. First of all, to check that these counterbalance mechanisms are straight and positioned towards the middle. And then I mean, they're not completely straight now, and that's because I'm kind of adjusting them as I find that parts of the shafts need to be raised or lowered. So you can kind of use where these are positioned to even out the shafts. And you can also see here that it's not completely straight now. And my strategy is good enough is good enough. So I look at those and I position how they're hanging to help achieve as much of an even balance as possible. Another thing that I do, which I haven't done completely on this project yet, is that if I have a narrow project like this, I take some of these string heddles and I put them on the outer side, kind of far out to the side on each shaft, even though you have a narrow project that only fills up like a smaller space in the middle. You can help so that the bars of the shafts do not just go completely wild and flip around in different directions. So I find that this really helps to place some of the string heddles far out on both sides of the shafts for all shafts, and that kind of helps balancing things out. So that's also an adjustment that I do. So as you can see here, the treadles are on a pretty upwards sloping angle. They're not hanging straight. And the lambs, when you start, should be also pointing a little bit upwards. Then the treadles will weigh them down and they will be roughly parallel. But this is something that I've found with experience, that I need to initially tie things kind of at a more sloping angle than I think. And I will also kind of adjust the texel accordingly to get them to slope more upwards and get them to be roughly even. So that's and after the first initial setup is done, it's time to start to make adjustments, because the shed will probably not be perfect, even though you've tried to set things up as well as possible. So what I do is that I press down on a treadle. Now I've already adjusted these shafts, so they should be fine. Apart from the one trick that I'm going to tell you about in the end, that will also make a difference. But I will press down on the treadle. I will see which threads are not doing what I want it to do. So if I'm looking in the shed, which shaft is it that's not kind of raising enough or lowering enough, I will follow the threads, identify the shafts, and kind of try to figure out what is going on. And it can be a couple of things. It could be that it is hitting the top of the bar. And something that can help is to adjust the height of the beater. So since this is a sinking shed, I think in the weaving book it says that it should be kind of in the middle of the reed of the beater, but I've found that I get a better shed to position the beater a little bit further down so that there's more room for the shafts to go down, because sometimes I found that the lower threads were hitting the bottom of the beater or of the reed, and that was what it was stopping the shed from being like nice and open. So I might lower the beater a little bit. If there are kind of one shaft or several shafts that are just not wanting to cooperate, I will follow the threads. I will identify which is the offending shed. I will move over to the side and I will take the shed, I will push down on the treadle and see what is going on with the shed, and I will see if I manually push down or up on one shed, is that doing what I wanted to do with the shed? So like, can I manually manipulate my shed to where I want it to be? And if I find that pushing down on a treadle, maybe it is that I want this shed, the third shaft, to go a little bit further down when I push my treadle. And then what I need to do is to tighten the connection for this third shed or this third shaft to the treadle that I'm pushing. So maybe that needs to be kind of, the textile needs to be shortened, so that when I push on the treadle, the shaft actually moves further down compared to what it is now. So then I will adjust that at the treadles. So I think that those are my standard at the loom adjustments that I make. Just firstly position the counterbalance mechanism, make sure that they have textiles, not textiles, make sure that they have heddles all the way out to the sides if it's a narrow warp, adjust the beater height so that the threads are not hitting the top or the bottom too early when you push down on the treadle, which might be impairing the shaft or the shed. And then manually manipulating the shafts with my hand to see what it is that I want to happen for the shed to be nice, and then trying to adjust the tie-up accordingly, tighten the tie-up or loosen the tie-up to make the shed be what I can see that it could be when I'm using my hands to kind of separate or push down on the shafts. But it's still pretty sometimes finicky to get this to be really nice. And then I asked in a Swedish weaving group about the best tricks to achieve a nice shed on a narrow, that was specifically for a narrow warp, because I found that my shafts wanted to just like dangle in different directions and I couldn't really get it to work nicely. And then I got this one amazing tip, which is so simple, so cheap, but makes a great difference. This is to add these elastic loops. So you can either have kind of one piece of elastic that has 4 loops on them for the 4 shafts. I have 4 different loops. These are just standard elastics that you can buy at any sewing accessory store. you tie these loops of elastic and then you wrap them around each shaft. So you make 8 of these for a 4-shaft loom. Then you just on each side wrap them around each of the shafts. And you can probably measure them out more precise than I have to make them exactly the right size or the same size. So you do this on this side, go over to the other side, do the same thing. And this helps kind of keep all the shafts up at a even level on both sides, but it still allows them to, when you push on the treadles, to move downwards, but then help them to kind of get a little bounce up again. And this really makes a great difference for making a nice shed, making the shafts not flip horizontally. And I think this trick is really the thing that have made the absolute biggest difference to my shed on this counterbalance loom. So what I have here is maybe not the largest shed that you will ever have seen, but it is a clean shed, and I have no issue passing my shuttle through this. It slides really nicely, it's well tensioned, and there's really no issue getting even a fairly large shuttle through this shed. So while a counterbalance loom might never be a counter march loom, and this is where some people with a lot of experience might disagree. I've heard people say that you can get as good of a shed on a counterbalance loom. Well, maybe just I can't, but I'm pretty pleased with this result. There's no thread kind of hanging down or pushing up, catching the shuttle or making skips, but it's a clean shed where you can easily pass your shuttle and beat. So hopefully some of these tips and tricks and strategies for achieving a nice weavable shed on your counterbalance loom can be of use. And even though I need to put down this lovely loom, for now I'm really hoping that I will have the opportunity to have it up again soon. And if you have other questions, I can try to answer them in the comments anyway. Yeah, happy weaving with this amazing, old-fashioned, but still really usable and workable piece of technology. Happy weaving!